Dear friends, I know that you are all Ukraine, but not all people understand that what happens in Ukraine concerns them all. Today is September 11th. On September 11th, 2001, when terrorists crashed into the World Trade Center, it changed our world. Thousands of innocent people died, and our hope for a more free, peaceful world after the Cold War was attacked. Principles were attacked. The US and the world reacted strongly. There were other horrible events since then. Many are happening right now. But what happens in Ukraine deserves special attention. It changed our world. Thousands of innocent people died, and it puts in doubt the rules of international orders since 1945. This is not just a human tragedy. This is a country in the middle of Europe where people die for European values. If they lose, it's an invitation to destroy those European values. Those who defend Ukraine, Ukrainians and foreigners, defend also those values. This triptych of Damien Hirst has title Doorways to the Kingdom of Heaven. It symbolized for me the souls of those who died defending Ukraine on Maidan, at the front and next to the Rada. They watch us, they expect us act, so they did not die for nothing. We are all very honored that President of Ukraine, Petro Poroshenko, agreed to open our conference. Gideon Rachman from Financial Times is our moderator. Thank you, Gideon. And thank you all for coming. I hope our group of friends built since 2004 and our tradition of honest dialogue will be a strong asset for Ukraine, for new Ukraine. Mr. President, floor is yours. Gideon, floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, it's an honor to me to open the 12th Yalta European Strategy meeting and a great pleasure to see a lot of my friends and partners, lots of friends and partners of Ukraine. We have gathered today to look how new Ukraine fate affect Europe and affect the world. Back in 2010, one of my dear friends, the President of the European Commission, José Manuel Barroso, uttered very important words in his State of the Union speech as the President of the European Commission. He said, addressing all Europe, we will not only succeed if whether acting nationally, locally, or regionally, we think European. In winter 2013-2014, Ukrainians were thinking European and rose up against tyranny and oppression. They opted for the European values: democracy, rule of law, respect of human rights and dignity, which they are shared mentally and belonged historically. Let me remind you that the European Union flag was also sprinkled with Ukrainian blood. And this is how new Ukraine was born. Yet, some thought it differently. Russia, which had failed to become an attractive soft power, unleashed its military power to restrain Ukraine's quest for the modernization Ukraine's quest for the European integration. By the aggression against sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity of Ukraine, Russia has actually challenged the entire democratic world. Ukraine and its allies are preventing Russia from growing its aggression and stretching its deadly neo-imperial ambitions further. I think it's clear that an independent democratic Ukraine anchored in the system of European values is the cornerstone to security and stability in Europe and in the whole world. Once this cornerstone gets undermined, the European and global security foundation will be shattered. 3 days ago, also delivering his State of the Union speech, new President of the European Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker, said, "If the European Union wants to promote a more peaceful world, it needs more Europe and more union in its foreign policy. And this is most urgent toward Ukraine." This is very promising that Europe keep thinking European. Dear friends, last year I spoke at this forum a week after the truce was concluded in Minsk. I shared with the audience that I felt much relief not receiving daily heartbreaking news from the front line and about losses of the lives of Ukrainian civilian and Ukrainian soldiers. Unfortunately, it was only a short respite. Russia spiraled the violence to get its way. However, we have been thinking and acting European. I have promised that I will bring peace and prosperity to Ukraine, and I do my best to keep my word, whether and whatever price I should pay. The recent Normandy format talks 2 days ago strengthening my feeling of cautious optimism. The ceasefire in place for the almost 2 weeks and not a dream anymore. Even more, I want to declare that today is the first day for 1.5 years that during 24 hours we do not have one single shelter. Congratulations. In spite of the overwhelming military advantage of the Russian army and enormous military budget, which is, Natalka, more than 30 times bigger than the Ukrainian, even the budget of the year 2015, Ukrainian heroes are keeping the defense in the Donbass and making Russia to pay just price for the escalation of the conflict. It took us only a year to build one of the strongest and one of the bravest armies on the continent. Next year we will increase military budget to counter more effectively and resolutely external threats. However, its sole goal will be to protect Ukraine from any sort of aggression. Let me remind you that during late spring, early summer months, almost all geopolitical and military experts around the world predicting in unison that the July-August the whole world could have witnessed another bloody large-scale offense of the Russian armed forces against Ukraine. Synergy of the heroism of the Ukrainian soldiers, officers and generals, as well as the volunteers with the tireless diplomatic efforts to get support of our European and transatlantic partners, has made it possible to avert the most apocalyptic scenario. However, the drama is still far from being over, as the Russian aggressor is still standing with the dozens of thousands of troops and countless heavy weapons, tanks, artillery, multiple rocket launch systems, missiles and other military equipment not only at our gates but also on our soil. Nevertheless, I understand that the political and diplomatic settlement is unfortunately the only possible way. Ladies and gentlemen, lack of early and proportional response leads to ever more aggravated consequences. Illegal annexation of Crimea without immediate strong response from the international community encouraged Kremlin to go further. These days, green men are landing in the hundreds in Syria, inspiring more violence in the Middle East and provoking ever-growing exodus of people, mostly to the European Union. The Crimea has begun a military operation base for Russia to further destabilize Black Sea and Mediterranean in the global confrontation with the West. Could you imagine that only 2 years ago, all of us have a brilliant meeting in Yalta? And I'm dreaming that in a very short period of time, all of us can return back. It is our purpose. Dear friends, now Ukraine is changing Europe since Russian aggression against new Ukraine, and it's become a test for a test for solidarity, a test for unity, a test for freedom and for democracy, a test for adherence of common values and principles. To pass this test, we have to translate our common thinking in our common acting. We must sharpen all instruments at our disposal to compel Russia to abandon its power politic game, to come back to the politics of respecting the law. First, we must make clear that not only current sanctions will stay in place as long as Russia occupies the Crimea and fuels turmoil in the Donbass, but also enhanced restrictive measures will follow if Russia further obstructs the settlement process. We must drive Russia to follow the logic of Minsk agreement. We have to prevent fake election in the Donbass, as it will ruin the Minsk process once again. It can happen just at the 18th of October and 1st of November, the same way like last year Russia killed the first Minsk process, providing illegal fake election on the 2nd of November last year. And I think that we must to ensure that Ukrainian citizens held captives in the cellars in the Donbass and in the cells in Russia, including Nadia Savchenko and Oleg Sentsov, be set free as soon as possible. Second, now it's a high time to discuss the possibility to deploy an operation in the Donbass to support due implementation of the Minsk agreement. It can help us to achieve two key objectives for restoring peace in Donetsk and Lugansk region: full withdrawal of the occupation forces of the Russian forces from Ukrainian territory and close Ukrainian-Russian border. This is the two main preconditions for peace and stability in Donbass. We don't have any civil war. We don't have any inside conflict. This is very simple. We have an aggression against Ukraine, an occupation of the independent Ukrainian states. And the aggressor, we should make it absolutely clear, is Russia. Third, it is also a high time to join our efforts toward amending institution and instrument that serve principle and norm of the international law, such as particular a veto right of Russia in the United Nations Security Council. The Russian aggression against Ukraine has shown vividly their flaws, and I hope that we will start the relevant discussion during upcoming 70th session of the United Nations Security Council and the United Nations General Assembly, because Russian aggression against Ukraine and Russian occupation of the Crimea completely ruined post-war security system, make it absolutely ineffective, the system which created and based on the Security Council of the United Nations. Ladies and gentlemen, the last year has been incredibly tough. Resisting Russian aggression, we have been undertaking tireless efforts to reform Ukraine. Decades of preceding stagnation and lack of reform have also worked against us. However, Ukraine showed all strength and determination to turn away the defeat. We took the hardest challenge as an opportunity to jumpstart the transformation of the country, to eliminate our skeleton of the closet, such as the corruption, to change from inside. The ruling coalition assumed a tremendously difficult job. The Ukrainian people are thirsty for reform and will not forgive even minimum delay. The reforms needed are systematic and deep. As such, as they are enormously hurting, while their effect does not come in one day. However, Ukraine remains committed to the further progress in reform, and we understand that in the face of the immense challenges, the recipe of our success is unity within, unity of the country, unity among the political forces. This is the top priority, not to give the aggressor to destabilize the situation in Ukraine from inside. Honesty, responsibility of the all political forces, both inside the parliament and outside the parliament. Consistency, accountability for the people, and reliability for all our partners. I have no doubt that the Ukraine-EU Association Agreement, which is a comprehensive roadmap for our domestic reform, will enter into force very soon, and deep and comprehensive free trade agreement will come in force certainly without any delay from the 1st of January, year 2016. Russia's coward attempts to impede this historic event will fail. It is impossible to stop Ukraine's resolute drive toward the European home, our way back. The decentralization has become the most known and visible recent reform in Ukraine. The principle to transfer the power from the capital in Kiev to the local authorities, it is one of the features of the European democracies. Its effective implementation will lead to a significant boost of the welfare of the Ukrainian communities and region, as well as the improvement of the local self-governance, rising up possibilities and rising up the responsibilities. This is exactly the European manner we want to implement here. Under the current challenges, the decentralization is the strong safeguard against any attempt, including from outside, to impose the dangerous idea of the federalization and a way to prevent spiral of separatism in Ukraine. With the establishment of the National Anti-Corruption Bureau and the National Agency for the Corruption Prevention, we have set a proper institutional background for fighting corruption efficiently. And the symbol for fighting corruption is new patrol police, which you can see now on the streets of Kiev, and now on the street of Lviv, on the streets of Odessa, and in a very near time on the streets of other Ukrainian cities. These bodies will get operational in the nearest future, will be equipped with the adequate tools to provide by the legislation. For the first time in the modern history, Ukrainian people have given their substantial support to the new patrol police. Comprehensive reform of other law enforcement agencies, like Prosecutor General Office, security sector, is unstoppable. In this regard, we highly appreciate significant support of our European and American and other international partners. Equally, I am satisfied with our efforts got translated on the critically important assistance that we have received from IMF and other financial institutions. Let me remind the words of the IMF Managing Director, Christine Lagarde, during her recent first in our history visit in Kiev. Ukraine has surprised the world, surprised by what it managed to achieve in such a short period of time. This is not just something, this is impressive. And this is the message also for the internal politician who try to bring the country into the disappointment and impression. Yes, we have the problem, but we should unite it to solve all this problem. And this is the clear indication, these words, that we are on the right track. As a president, I will do my best to maintain the vector and the pace of the reform. We also do our best to help European political culture to flourish in Ukraine. Political ambitions sometimes go off scale, while tough reform could tempt the enhanced political ranking with speculation. On its part, Russia has changed the tactic and recently increased the effort to destabilize Ukraine from within. Unfortunately, political forces in Ukraine keep falling into this trap. However, our political condominium is getting more mature. Despite recent moves, the pro-European coalition has to keep reforming the country. We will prove that we will have become statesmen rather than remain politicians. I hope that the democratic political forces in Ukraine will not only tell their voters that they do and promise they will want to do for them, but they will also consistently work to secure the future for the generation to come. And this is mean thinking and acting European. I rely on this spirit will reign during the upcoming local election. What I can be sure already is that they will be free and fair. I have no doubt. And if there is an example of how democratic elections should be, that is exactly about these coming votes. 2 days ago, I signed a decree which rules the secure, equal opportunities for all the runners, prevent interference into the election process, engage international observers, including ODIHR, guarantee the proper condition for observers and election commissions, and ensure security for the voters. After democratic presidential and parliamentary election in year 2014, this electoral round is deemed to complete the total reboot of power in Ukraine. I expect that it will become point of no return to the Eurasian autocracy, which is aligned to Ukrainian national philosophy. Dear ladies and gentlemen, we rely on the continuous, sincere and committed support of our partners for Ukraine in our efforts toward peace and comprehensive transformation of Ukraine. We will have to think and act European today, but also urge our European partners to think Ukrainian a bit. Ukraine needs more than ever this thinking Ukrainian. We must seize the momentum of now and secure our common European future for tomorrow. Thank you very much indeed for your attention, and Slava Ukraini!
Mr. President, thank you very much for the speech. You had a very interesting and heartening piece of news about 24 hours without shelling. A couple of months ago, though, you were warning of the threat of a full-scale invasion by Russia. Is that threat now no longer there, or are you still worried that there could be a major escalation in the war?
Thank you very much indeed. No one single Russian soldier, no one single Russian tank returned back to Russia, unfortunately. Our intelligence sources, together with our satellite intelligence, supported and confirmed by our NATO, but our transatlantic partners, confirm that we have a place and site where the observers and monitors from the special monitoring mission of the OSCE simply not allowed to enter. We know exactly where it's situated. Russian tanks, Russian artillery, Russian multi-rocket launch system, and Russian missiles. And even more important, the Russian soldiers. They simply stop shooting. And this is the first achievement. First achievement that nobody died in the front line. First achievement that this is possible. Because for 1.5 years, everybody put under question mark. This is possible to make a ceasefire. Ceasefire is a key element of all my peace plan and Minsk agreement based on this peace plan. And this is very simple. What is the Minsk agreement? First, ceasefire. Second, withdrawal of heavy artillery and weapons. Third, release all the hostages, which is illegally kept both on the occupied territory and in Russia. And fourth, immediate access of the monitor of the OSCE Special Monitoring Group to all the territory. And then political regulation, because when we ask about free and fair election on the Donbass, which should be adequate to all ODIHR standard, we speak different languages with our participant in the trilateral contact group. They do not understand what does it mean free and fair election. And we strongly supported this idea because that's create a real representative of the people of Donbass with whom we should speak about the peculiarities of their future. And I insisted that Ukraine implement and fulfill all our obligation to demonstrate to the whole world our responsibility and absolutely irresponsible behavior of Russia. But the ceasefire, the real ceasefire, which we have the last 24 hours, give us very careful optimism, and this is very positive news.
As you say, it's a very important development, but you also made the point in your speech that Minsk is about a lot more than a ceasefire. And many people are quite skeptical that the really difficult bits of Minsk, the withdrawal of troops, the securing of the border, will happen. And if they don't happen in the next few months as they're meant to, what happens then? Is there another Minsk Accord? How do you see the future if Russia doesn't fulfill its part of the bargain?
That's why I said I asked Leonid Kuchma, my representative in the Trilateral Contact Group, to cancel the statement that it's possible to continue Minsk to year 2016. No. Everybody should fulfill their obligation in year 2015 because Ukraine pay a huge price for not implementing Minsk agreement. This is point number one. Point number two, the time play for Ukraine, not for Russia. And this is for sure. Peace play for Ukraine, not for Russia. Because all the people who live in the disastrous humanitarian condition in Donetsk, Lugansk, Gorlovka, Makeyevka and other cities, again, they have a disastrous humanitarian condition and they do not understand why they should pay this price. And Russia do not bring any lie anymore that they are defending them from Ukrainian junta. It's not working anymore. And people do not believe in that anymore. Even more, during the last months, and following my instruction, we opened the Humanitarian Logistics Center. Why we do that? Why we bringing food, product, medical, from pharmacies, mobile banking system, others, just to support the Ukrainian people, because this is my people, this is Ukrainian people who live on the occupied territory. And they buy the food, product, medicine and others at the price 2 times cheaper than on the occupied territory where we have Russian prices. That's why I'm optimism. And I wasn't even the optimism when everybody was a pessimist. When everybody strongly condemned the Minsk agreement and said that it is not working. Where are your voices now, my dear friends? When you attacking me, when I supporting the constitutional reform for the decentralization, and I said the very next day, when we vote that, we will have continuation of the sanction making this decision by European Union. Thank you for our partners. When we have a new sanction from our partners from the United States and Canada, when we have a new decision to support Ukraine in the financial and economic sphere, and when we have a ceasefire. This is a peace, and this is the real evidence that we should follow the way of the Minsk agreement. No any other alternative. Thank you.
You say you're an optimist and you make the case for it. Some people say...
I'm a careful optimist.
Careful
this is the big difference. Sorry about that.
Some people say that maybe Russia has shifted objective. It doesn't want to grab any more territory, but its goal is to turn Ukraine into a failed state, and that they are making some progress, that the Ukrainian economy has shrunk by maybe 17% this year, that you have a huge pile of debt, that there is this evidence of deep political disillusionment here in Ukraine with the polls pretty bad and the violence outside parliament last week. So to foreigners, many of whom are here, who worry that Ukraine may yet become a failed state, how can you reassure them?
For those who try to predict the Russian behavior, I have a very bad news. This is unpredictable. Nobody can say, does Russia continue the offensive operation or provide any other firm try to hit the Ukraine. That's why me, as a Ukrainian president and the commander-in-chief of Ukrainian armed forces, will make it stronger Ukrainian army. And I'm proud of Ukrainian soldiers, officers and general. And I'm proud that we, Ukrainian government, Ukrainian volunteers, Ukrainian officers, build up absolutely new and powerful army with such a short period of time. That was almost impossible. But we can do that. Why we do that? Because we need to have a strong force to defend our security, territorial integrity, our independence. But does this the only major danger from Russia? No. And when you're talking about the fall in the 17% of our gross domestic products, and what you expect? 25% of our industrial output is under the occupation. Crimea is under the annexation. 10% of our industrial output, which is situated on this occupied territory, is physically destroyed. And we are in a state of war, and we should pay the last penny to support our army. Do you seriously expect that we can have an economic growth in this condition? But we lowering the economic fall, and I'm expecting that we do our best to demonstrate the growth of the GDP in the year 2016. We significantly lowering the inflation. We stabilize the financial and banking system. We stabilize the rate of exchange. But also nobody believes that we in this condition can make it stable, the banking system of Ukraine. Yes, we do that. We stabilize the budget discipline. And what I told about the decentralization, can you imagine that all of our communities receive a huge money, up to 30-40% growth from the last year? Why we do that? Because we want to eliminate the corruption and bad management. We want to deliver the money directly to the communities and make it very close. Power, local governance, and the people. Absolutely European model based on the Polish experience. And we have the Polish experts who help us to do that, together with other European Union experts. So, this is not true that reform is not working. We simply have 8 months from the new parliament election. And our new government has a very short period of time. Yes, we have a mistake, but we openly telling about that, discussing that, and ready to change some ministers and government. No problem. This is absolutely open European manner. Yes, we have, and I'm not satisfied. Together the same way like a prime minister is not satisfied, the coalition is not satisfied with the some results of the reform. But it is those who do not work in do not make a mistake. If you're asking me if I am optimist for the economic situation, yes. On the last National Council for the Reform, we discussed the new tax code, which is seriously help us to improve the investment climate. Tomasz, investment climate will be improved, no matter. And the investor will feel himself happy. And we need support from the international investor, not the advice from a side. Because we are together in the same boat. Please remember that. And I'm absolutely sure that we need to be optimistic, even in this very difficult condition. We need to believe in our victory the same way that I believe that. Because the victory we can receive the victory only when we have a victory in our brain, no doubt.
Well, you make a very convincing case for the difficulty of the conditions you're operating in. And yet, if you look at the opinion polls, people don't seem very patient. They are disappointed. And when they came out in the Maidan almost 2 years ago now, they were demonstrating for a whole new style of government. Some people say that you should go even further to demonstrate that new style of government, and they point specifically to your promise to sell your own assets. It's a question you've been asked many times here. Can I ask it to you now? Why haven't you done that?
Because this is very difficult to sell anything in the country in a state of war. Most of you are investment bankers. If anybody can help me doing that, you're welcome. But I have a strong hopes. Yeah, and my Russian actives is under arrest. Put there the arrest, not allowing to sell. But I'm absolutely confident that in a very short period of time we will have a news. And a second position, the people are disappointed. That's true. We have many countries which is in this state of war, having such a big military expenses, cut the budget deficit, cut the government expenditure, make a reform in this very difficult condition. Because I have many pieces of advice from a side. Please don't do the reform during the war. Don't change the constitution during the war. You should sit and wait. And this is not exactly which we're not allowed to do. Yes, we should pay this price. And people will support us. People support us now, and people will support us when they will feel the first results of the reform. Just 8 months, almost 9 months from the parliamentary election. But that was my challenge. I was severely criticized when I make a decision to appoint the new parliamentary election. I can only imagine what we have now in the country if I do not declare the parliamentary election. Having the fifth column in the parliament from Russia, having communists in the parliament, and having absolutely uncontrolled situation now. And the voting, including voting in constitution, said that we seriously and decisively continue the program and the path of the reform.
I want to ask you about the violence outside Parliament last week. Some people in the outside world have always been worried about the militias out in the east and whether they pose a threat to democracy. Was that what we saw last week?
Look, fortunately or unfortunately, but we have absolutely new Ukraine last week. I can give you the information that beforehand, all the time, people was against the National Guard, no matter what function make a National Guard and what function make the people. And today, this is the first time when the people everywhere, on the street, in the social media, everywhere, they seriously do not support, softly speaking.
those who were on the constitutional square, and bringing hundreds and hundreds of flour to this place where 3 National Guard soldiers were killed. This is the first time in our history when people support the soldiers who are defending the freedom and democracy. And I think this is also a symbol of new Ukraine, responsibility of the people. When they say that they have hundreds of thousands of the people who is protesting, we are a democratic country with a freedom. And when we have first our meeting, when the Yanukovych rejected to sign the association agreement in Vilnius, very next day on the street of Kiev was 1 million people. And on the constitutional Maidan, despite the efforts of the radical party to bring by buses several hundred people, there was just 1,500. So that was very best evidence. The results of the opinion poll that 75% of Ukrainian people strongly support the decentralization reform. And I will be together with my people.
Mr. President,